I'll write a detailed summary of this nearly 3-hour interview between Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, and Paul Rossley, conservationist and author of Jungle Keeper. Section 1. The last people on Earth emerged from the jungle, and their first question was devastating. The most striking moment in this interview is world-first footage of an uncontacted tribe emerging from the Amazon rainforest to make contact with the outside world. These people, living in what an anthropologist described as the bamboo age, without metal boats, fish hooks, or knowledge of spoons, the wheel, Jesus, or the country of Peru, walked out of the jungle naked, armed with 7-foot longbow arrows, surrounded by millions of butterflies. After a tense negotiation across a river with shotguns and bows at the ready on both sides, they asked for bananas and rope. But their most haunting question was, how do we tell the bad guys from the good guys? They explained that outsiders had shot at them with guns and cut down their trees they called their gods. Paul Rossley, the guest, was part of the Jungle Keepers team present for this encounter. The tribe's men distracted the contact party, while their women raided the community farm behind them, stripping it of yucca, plantains, and sugarcane. The footage was withheld for a long time due to sensitivity. Releasing it could encourage people to seek out the tribe, and outside pathogens like the common cold could wipe them out entirely. Rossley estimates there are several thousand little clans of uncontacted peoples moving nomadically through the Amazon. Their violence, they kill people all the time, is a response to being hunted by narco-traffickers, loggers, and gold miners. A mass grave of a similar clan was recently found. The day after this peaceful encounter, Rossley's friend George was shot through the body by an arrow that entered over his scapula and exited by his belly button, collapsing his lung. He was helicopter evacuated and survived, but will never be the same. Section 2. A Barefoot high school dropout who became director of a major conservation organization, Paul Rossley dropped out of high school early by taking his GED, a decision negotiated with his parents on the condition he attend university. Between semesters, he traveled to the most remote research station he could find, a 2-day boat journey from the nearest city in Peru. There he met JJ, an indigenous man from the Siha tribe, who became his teacher and eventually co-director of Jungle Keepers. JJ grew up barefoot until age 13, learned from generations of indigenous knowledge tracking jaguars, identifying medicinal plants, fishing for piranha using calluses from his own feet as bait, reading animal tracks like last night's newspaper. Rossley's one skill was handling snakes, and the two struck a deal. I'll teach you snakes, you teach me everything else. JJ invited Rossley on a family hunting expedition 10 days deep into parts of the Amazon that have yet to be named. The Amazon rainforest is larger than the lower 48 U.S. states, contains 1/5 of Earth's fresh water, produces another 1/5 of its oxygen, and harbors the most terrestrial biodiversity ever recorded anywhere. Half the life exists 150–160 feet up in the canopy. Rossley describes standing at the confluence where the Andes meet the lowland tropical Amazon as witnessing the most life we know of in the entire universe. There are still unexplored parts of the Amazon that no human has ever visited. Section 3. The Eaten Alive disaster, how Hollywood set back a conservationist by 10 years at around 24, Discovery Channel approached Rossley about a show. They promised it would be called Expedition Amazon and would showcase his groundbreaking anaconda research, including feeding transmitters to a record-breaking 18-foot 6-inch anaconda named Elena, after his grandmother, the largest snake ever scientifically measured at the time, weighing over 100 kilos. The deal included a stunt at the end where Rossley, wearing a specially designed suit, would demonstrate that anacondas aren't dangerous man-eaters. The night before his media tour, they showed him the final cut. All science and conservation messaging had been stripped out. The show was renamed Eaten Alive. The public was angry he wasn't actually consumed. Peter was furious. Scientists dismissed him as a shock entertainer. Jimmy Kimmel joked, "For your next stunt, you should try having sex with a hippo." Rossley was effectively exiled from conservation circles. One prominent conservationist told him not to come to South America. He retreated to India and lived with elephants. The setback lasted roughly a decade. Yet Rossley now calls it the best thing that ever happened because it forced him back into the jungle for years of deeper experience and ultimately led him to develop the Jungle Keepers model. Sometimes the things that you want are not the things that you need, he reflects. Life sort of moves aside. I am going to give you what you need, not what you want. Section 4. The lowest point, quitting, COVID, and the billionaire who called 1 week later. The interview's most emotionally raw moment comes when Rossley describes his lowest point. By his early 30s, the fire wasn't catching despite years of effort. Discovery Channel had failed him, his first book with HarperCollins went nowhere commercially despite good reviews, and Jungle Keepers had protected 50,000 acres but still felt unsustainable. His father, dropping him off one day, gently suggested he might need to jump ship and start over. Then COVID hit. Peru was the hardest hit country in the world. Rossali's entire staff, friends, and family in Peru were on oxygen tanks. He bankrupted his ecotourism business, sending money for oxygen and survival. Stuck outside the jungle, he called his best friend Mosen and said what he'd never told anyone: "I quit. I am out. I am done. I have no hope left." Mosen hung up on him. Exactly 1 week later, billionaire Dax Silva reached out after seeing Rossali's videos. He offered a 5-year funding commitment to jungle keepers, salaries for rangers, infrastructure and protection for an additional 100,000 acres. "If we hadn't spent years and years chipping at the same piece of granite," Rossali says, "whether or not you can hammer through granite depends on whether or not you continue to whack the hammer." From that inflection point, momentum built. The United Nations, growing global support, Jane Goodall's ongoing endorsement, and ultimately a New York Times bestseller. News Rossali received the day of this interview. Section 5. What the Jungle Teaches About Modern Life Purpose, and the Anterior Midcingulate Cortex. Bartlett asks whether Rossali sees Western life as a collective delusion, and Rossali answers bluntly, "Yes, we're a fish perpetually out of water." He describes the physical transformation that happens in wilderness: calluses forming, skin thickening, senses sharpening, legs strengthening, as the body becoming the jungle version of yourself. He connects this to the anterior midcingulate cortex, a brain structure that grows when you do things you don't want to do, citing Andrew Huberman's claim that it may be one of the most important discoveries in neuroscience of the last century. Studies show it's smaller in obese individuals and doom-scrolling youth, larger in athletes and long-lived people. Rossali draws a parallel to Theodore Roosevelt, who, after losing his mother and wife on the same day, spent 2 years in the Badlands and emerged transformed, going on to become the youngest president in American history. He connects this to indigenous vision quests and his own 10-day solo survival expeditions into unnamed parts of the Amazon. On Modern Disconnection, Rossali describes being unable to open an Uber door, having never encountered a button-operated car handle. He calls hotel rooms a kind of societal claustrophobia, nothing natural in the room, windows sealed shut. His nightly ritual is looking up at the stars. How else can you pray? He describes showering as inferior to diving into a jungle river. His message for a screen-addicted generation: you go to the mountains and the rain and the sky and the rocks, well teach you what's real, real quick. Section 6. Snakes, Fear, and the live demonstration that stopped the interview. Rossali brought 3 live snakes to the studio, creating one of the most memorable segments in the podcast's history. He started with a baby ball python, so harmless you could hand it to a baby, coaching Bartlett through holding it with the advice to be the tree. The snake preferred Rossali, sensing Bartlett's tension. A larger ball python followed, demonstrating remarkable grip strength with no legs, no claws, just strength. The climax was a Burmese python roughly 10 feet long, which Rossali draped around Bartlett's neck. Bartlett's genuine fear, "What the F is my life?" contrasted with Rossali's calm expertise. The python wrapped around the show's iconic diary prop, gripping so tightly Bartlett couldn't pull it free despite visible effort. Rossali used the demonstration to make a serious point: snakes are sweethearts. No snake wants to deal with you, they just want to go hide. He explained that Burmese pythons have become a devastating invasive species in Florida, eating alligators and native wildlife, but in their native Southeast Asia, they're simply apex predators filling an ecological role. His rule: people should be respectful of snakes the same way you're respectful of heights. He noted that anacondas have a different personality. He would never bring one to a studio. This segment embodied Rossali's entire philosophy: hands-on experience dissolves fear and builds understanding. Section 7. God, the Amazon's invisible river, and why apathy makes no sense. Rossali declares belief in God absolutely, framing science as the language of God rather than an opposing force. His spirituality is rooted in physical experience: drinking from a river, watching moisture evaporate from his skin, seeing it rejoin clouds and fall as rain. You are part of the cycle. He describes an invisible mist river above the Amazon canopy that is larger than the Amazon River itself. He first saw it from the tallest tree in the jungle at dawn, and built a treehouse on a promontory so others could witness it. On the modern anxiety around AI and technology, Rossali is dismissive of the hysteria. "Shut up, go outside, touch some grass." He cites Jensen Huang's Rogan interview, noting that AI made radiologists better rather than replacing them, and calls the current moment delirious adolescence with a new technology. His strongest rebuke: everyone's like, we should go colonize Mars. Great, F Mars though, let's fix this planet. Prove that we're capable of managing. It's like the kid going, "I want to take over the company," and the father going, "Get your room clean." He has no social media doom-scrolling habit, curating his Instagram feed to show only conservationists and artists. He describes his ayahuasca experience, accidentally megadosed when an 80-year-old shaman fell asleep while boiling the brew, as horrifying, involving the creation of the universe, shapelessness between solar systems and wormholes. The shaman retired for a week afterward. Rosalie also recounts indigenous plant medicine, curing a rare disease called tularemia that antibiotics couldn't touch for 2 months. JJ applied tree sap that denatured the infection overnight. Section 8. The mission, the meaning, and the key takeaways. Jungle Keepers. Org is the organization Rosalie and JJ co-direct, protecting 130,000 acres of Amazon River Basin with plans for 300,000 acres and a national park. Their model converts loggers and gold miners into paid conservation rangers, funded by global donors giving as little as the price of a monthly coffee. Rosalie found love late, proposing in his treehouse above the jungle canopy after taking his now-wife crocodile catching on her first night in the Amazon. He acknowledged survivorship bias openly, referencing the famous WWII bullet hole analysis. Maybe you should be getting advice from the people in the graveyard, not the people that came back. He quoted, "Every frozen body on Everest was once a highly motivated rich person that thought they could succeed, and now they're an icicle." Key takeaways. The Amazon is not optional. It contains 1/5 of Earth's fresh water, produces 1/5 of its oxygen, and we are the last generation that can save it. Uncontacted tribes exist in 2026. Several thousand clans, living without metal boats or knowledge of the modern world, being actively hunted by narco-traffickers and loggers. Failure is the prerequisite. Rosalie's Discovery Channel disaster, commercial book failure, and near-quit moment all preceded his breakthrough. The master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. Unusual outcomes require unusual behavior for an unusual period of time. Persistence and obsession cannot be faked. Nature is medicine for the modern mind. Physical engagement with wilderness grows the anterior midcingulate cortex and alleviates the disconnection driving modern anxiety and depression. Find a master, not a shortcut. Rosalie's advice to young people. Find someone doing the work you admire, carry their bags, and log 5 years learning before starting your own project. Optimism is earned. Tigers recovering from 3,000 to 6,000, humpback whales back to near pre-whaling numbers, the ozone hole repaired. I don't understand how everybody isn't stoked.